For decades, we thought we had the story of how people first arrived in Australia figured out. It was a single epic migration happening around 50,000 years ago. But what if that whole story is off by 15,000 years? What if the first chapter of human history on the continent is way, way longer than we ever imagined? Deep in a remote rock shelter in northern Australia, a discovery was made that's forcing us to rethink everything. It suggests people were here thousands of years earlier than we believed, and it has kicked off one of the biggest debates in modern archaeology. To get why this is so explosive, you have to know the official story. For a long time, the consensus was that modern humans first set foot on the ancient supercontinent of Sahul, the giant landmass that connected Australia, New Guinea, and Tasmania, around 50,000 years ago. This timeline was built on decades of incredible work at sites across the continent. You've probably heard of Lake Mungo in New South Wales, home to the famous remains of Mungo Man and Mungo Lady. While these specific individuals lived around 40,000 to 42,000 years ago, artifacts found at the site suggest people were there as far back as 50,000 years. Sites like this and Devil's Lair in the southwest helped paint a picture of a rapid and stunningly successful expansion. People arrived, they spread out, and they adapted with incredible speed to a new and often brutal environment. Genetic studies seem to back this up, pointing to a short chronology of settlement. It was a neat, tidy story that fit with what we knew about human migration out of Africa. But science is rarely neat. And in the sandy floor of a rock shelter in Arnhem Land, that tidy story was about to get blown apart. The site is called Madjedbebe. It's a sandstone rock shelter on the traditional lands of the Mirarr people, and it's been a home to humans for millennia. Archaeologists had known about it for years, but in 2017, a team led by Chris Clarkson decided to dig deeper to settle questions about its age once and for all. They used a dating technique called optically stimulated luminescence, which is just as cool as it sounds. Basically, it allows scientists to measure the last time a single grain of sand was exposed to sunlight. Think of it like asking a grain of sand, "When was the last time you saw the sun?" As soon as an object gets buried, the sand around it is shielded, and a geological clock starts ticking. The team analyzed thousands of individual sand grains from the deepest layers of the dig, and the results were staggering. Buried deep in the earth, they found over 10,000 artifacts. There were complex stone tools, grinding stones used to process seeds, and the world's oldest known edge-ground hatchets. They even found huge amounts of ground ochre, pigments for art and ceremony. Finding these sophisticated tools was a shock, but their age is what sent tremors through the scientific community. The date came back at 65,000 years. This wasn't a small adjustment. This was a 15,000-year leap into the past. It suggests Aboriginal people have lived in Australia for a minimum of 65,000 years, making their arrival older than any known modern human settlement in Europe. These weren't just lost explorers. The artifacts show they were innovators from the moment they arrived. A discovery this radical was never going to be accepted without a fight, and the debate has been fierce. The Madjedbebe team stands by their work, arguing their dating methods were meticulous. They painstakingly analyzed the layers of soil to show the artifacts hadn't been shifted downwards by water or burrowing animals. Support for the long chronology has also come from recent genetic studies. Some analyses of mitochondrial DNA from indigenous communities across the region suggest an arrival around 60,000 years ago or even earlier. Even more fascinating, some studies propose it wasn't just one migration, but at least two distinct journeys happening around the same time, a northern route into New Guinea and a southern one into Australia. This picture of sophisticated parallel voyages fits well with the ancient date from Madjedbebe. But critics aren't convinced. They raise serious questions about the Madjedbebe site itself. Could the loose, sandy soil have been disturbed over millennia by termites, which are common in the area? If so, that could potentially mix older charcoal with younger artifacts, giving a misleadingly ancient date for the tools. Other scientists push back, using different genetic models that still point to an arrival closer to 50,000 years ago. One of the most interesting arguments involves our ancient cousins, the Neanderthals. We know that modern humans outside of Africa carry Neanderthal DNA. Some researchers argue the main interbreeding event happened between 43,500 and 50,500 years ago, meaning any population that reached Australia 65,000 years ago would have left the main group before they met the Neanderthals, and thus shouldn't have their DNA. Since modern Aboriginal Australians do have Neanderthal DNA, these critics say a post-50,000-year arrival makes more sense. It's a massive scientific puzzle with passionate experts on every side. So why does this 15,000-year difference matter so much? Because it changes everything. An earlier arrival rewrites the story of human expansion across the globe. It means that the ancestors of Australia's first peoples were incredible maritime pioneers, undertaking planned, open ocean voyages long before we thought was possible. It also completely reframes the debate about Australia's extinct megafauna, the giant kangaroos, car-sized wombats, and 7-meter-long lizards. Their extinction peaked around 42,000 years ago. For years, a leading theory was the human blitzkrieg, that newly arrived people quickly hunted these giants into oblivion. But if humans got here 65,000 years ago, it means they coexisted with megafauna for more than 20,000 years. That's an incredibly long time. A rapid, human-led slaughter suddenly seems a lot less likely. Instead, it points to a more complex story, where long-term climate change and the drying of the continent were the main drivers of extinction, with human hunting playing a smaller role. The evidence increasingly suggests that first peoples were sustainable custodians for millennia. This story is a powerful reminder that history isn't static. It's a living field of inquiry, constantly being updated by new discoveries. And our understanding of deep time is always evolving. If you're fascinated by the mysteries of our ancient past and want to explore more stories that challenge what we think we know, make sure to subscribe. So, is Australia's 65,000-year-old timeline a lie? The honest answer is, it's a fierce debate. The Madjedbebe date threw a wrench into a long-held consensus, and science is now grappling with the consequences. While new lines of evidence are lending support to the older date, the argument is far from over. What we can say for sure is that the story is far more complex and far more interesting than we used to believe. The First Peoples of Australia have an ancient and unbroken ancestry, representing one of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth. Whether they arrived 50,000 or 65,000 years ago, their journey to Sahul was one of the greatest achievements in human history. The intense debate over these dates isn't a sign of failure. It's the scientific process doing its job. It's how we challenge assumptions and get closer to the truth. And it shows that somewhere, buried beneath the sands of time, there are still incredible stories waiting to be unearthed.